So at this time, I'd like to invite Harry Fenstermaker to come and join me here in the chancel area for a conversation. I've known Harry for quite a number of years. When my Aunt Grace was buying a car, he wouldn't sell her the car until he talked to a male member of her family. And so I was chosen. And he could have told me anything. I would have believed him. He was explaining a lot of detail. But I knew he was a man of great integrity, that he wanted to make sure that she was not being taken advantage of. So I appreciate that. I appreciate your friendship across the years and making some time for us. So car repair, and Harry's with Imperial Auto on 873 in Schnecksville. So car repair is nothing new to you, right? This is something that you've kind of grown up with.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got interested? I mean, I know your dad works at Imperial with you.
Yeah, he does, and he was always a mechanic growing up. My grandfather had a lawn and garden repair shop, so kind of started early on.
Yeah.
Yeah, always had an interest in it.
So taking things apart and putting them back together comes naturally for you.
Yeah.
I can take things apart, and then I'm stuck.
That's halfway.
That's where I call you. I don't know what I'm doing here. So we're doing a sermon series for Lent, and I just thought it would be helpful because when we've done series in the past, 1 week connects with the next week, and so I thought this would be a good series to as we are growing in these 5 weeks, growing a little closer in our relationship with God, to look at it from a tangible way. So car repair, car restoration, how do we go from rust to restoration? And I'm calling this a redeemed series. And today, Assessing the Damage is a title. And you'll be seeing some slides up on the big screen of some kind of the process of one of our members' sons is in restoring cars. So you can look at that, or you can look at Harry and me, whatever is better to look at. So how do you assess the damage of a car? So someone like me comes in and says, Harry, car just doesn't seem to run right. It goes pa 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 pa. Where do you begin with somebody like me?
You have a little conversation for 10 minutes or so and get some symptoms, some noises. Does it happen more when it's cold? Does it happen more when it's hot? And just you kind of assess it that way. And then from there, I'll drive the car myself and listen to it, and then I'll inspect it.
So putting it into the context of our growth, sometimes that's the way I have to help people as well. They come in and say, my life just isn't the way it should be. I'd like to be closer with God. It begins with a conversation, right? Rather than kind of knowing what the problem is, begin to talk about what might be different about it. Good. How do cars fall into disrepair in the first place? I mean, we spend a lot of time and money in purchasing a car, and then we end up with problems. How does that happen?
Usually by ignoring little things one at a time.
Okay.
Something doesn't work on a car, and I'll let that go, and then next thing you know, you let 2 things go, 3 things go, and then it kind of turns into one big mess after a while. For whatever the reason, someone starts that habit, going down there like that.
So kind of neglecting signs that we should be paying attention to.
Yep.
Well, again, to look at, that's often, it's usually not a big presenting issue. It's often people may feel distant from God or from their own kind of sense of joy and fulfillment in life because they've neglected certain things that they should have been paying closer attention
earlier on
to. So kind of, we're going to keep in tune with our cars or with our own life to pay attention to the small things, because the small things which are ignored over time are going to catch up with us eventually.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So again, people are bringing stuff in. They're making kind of noise. You probably have heard every imaginable noise that a person could make to mimic what's happening with their car and so on and so forth. What role does patience play in helping someone move from the problems that they have to where they hope that they would want to be?
Well, as far as for the patience part of it, I would have to say that if someone comes in with an obscure problem that maybe doesn't always show show itself.
Right.
Or during that first conversation we were talking, they let stuff out that you have a couple conversations to find out what's really going on. That requires a little bit of patience.
So sometimes they don't come clean on everything right away.
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, I forgot to tell you
Yeah,
about that.
yeah, whether it's an embarrassment thing or whatever the reason, yeah.
Yeah. Can I confess my biggest embarrassment? So some of you know that I have a 69 pickup truck I called Old Blue, and some of you have seen me drive. It was my dad's truck. And the garage that I used to go to before I came to Imperial would not let me spend money on a new fuel gauge. And so I was driving and I was on Sumter Avenue and it just stopped on me, just absolutely stopped. Tried to start it. So I called AAA, Imperial Auto, have it there. And Harry checked it out. He goes, well, the one important thing is you really need to keep gas in the truck. Oh yeah, that does actually help to keep it moving. So anyway, true confessions, embarrassment, and that happens with people coming to me as well. They'll tell me some symptoms or what think there is going on, but they neglect to maybe tell me that there is something in their past that may have happened that they just couldn't let go of, couldn't forgive. Has bothered them, troubled them, maybe impacting this current situation. It could have been many years ago. But so patience is having maybe more than one conversation or follow-up questions with somebody to make sure that you're diagnosing that issue.
Right. Yeah.
What's the greatest frustration of the work that you do?
Probably frustration would be, the biggest one would probably be, again, going into that obscure problem if you can't find something the first time, especially if it's something that happens once every 3 weeks. Yeah. And I think sometimes people are expected, they're expecting you to find it right away when it only acts up for them every now and then.
Right, okay.
And that could be frustrating.
So that's it.
Because you want to make it right.
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 Well, because when you return that vehicle to them, they want you to have addressed that problem.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes it's not immediately noticeable.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and when people come to talk to me, or if they want it instantaneous, but not everything happens right away.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. What about, my youngest son working at a car wash, and it's nice to have a nice, clean car on the outside, but just because it's shiny on the outside doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work well on the inside, right?
Yep, definitely. Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about that?
It's really common to see a car that's been shined up and made to look like something that was maintained, and you find out that it wasn't. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I've seen some cars that look rough around the edges, but mechanically they're pretty well taken care of. Just
do you need me to hold her? I'm available. Comes as part of the baptism. No extra charge for babysitting. Sorry, Harry.
No. Yeah. So, yeah.
So, and people can put out fronts for us too, right? I mean, everything's fine, everything's great. And, admittedly, maybe it's not so great inside and they're struggling with something.
Yeah.
But on the outside looks all polished and so on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one last thing is there any vehicle that's too old or, that you just say it's just not worth it or whatever? I mean.
Well, that's probably the big thing. There's a lot of times a vehicle will come in where it's deteriorated beyond the point where it's not worth spending the money on. Some people decide to go a little further for sentimental purposes.
Sure.
But I mean, just about anything can be fixed if you want to spend enough money on it. But doesn't mean you should.
So it may mean that you have to invest a little bit more, a little bit harder.
Sometimes a lot more.
Yeah. And same with us. I mean, sometimes we've been hardened, or we think, we're just too old to change. Who has ever said that? I'm not going to change, at my age. I've said that. I'm not going to change. But, sometimes it just takes a little more effort, a little more time to make that happen. So, So an investment not only in our vehicles to take them from not working properly to where we want them to be, and with our own lives as well, to take them from where we know as we begin Lent, it's not what we need to be and what we need to do. And that's what we're going to be covering the next couple of weeks, is how do we move, how do we assess the issues that we have in our life. Romans says we've all sinned and fallen short of God's glory. So what do we need to, today in our Sunday school class, we talked about the unconverted places in our lives. What needs attention? We probably know it, but it's hard to admit that there's places of growth that still need to happen. So any closing comments you want to make today?
Not really.
Okay. A man of few words, a man of few words. And at the 8 o'clock service, I told everybody, I said, I asked Harry to come today because this is the first Sunday in the Lenten season, but I didn't tell him that it was daylight savings time until after he agreed to come. And then I said, oh, by the way. So, Harry, thank you very much for taking time for us, and I appreciate everything that you do for others and helping us to start this Lenten journey. Safe travels.